diaspora overboard. Shuang Chu, Shuang Chu. When you were small, I wasn't alive, repeating Shuang Chu, Shuang Chu. My pink chong sam, the little red packets that jingle from the $2 shop, and that voice in my skull. You're only half Chinese. You couldn't understand. With my fairy bread, mustard green track pants, chopsticks with a giraffe on the end, but I hear you in my head. Shuang Chu, Shuang Chu. You are here. You are with me. Your township worry, a shawao de yop yao, a small mail ticket. Like Buck Buck and Buck Gung, traveling to what they hope will be home.
I 姓廖，名字寶蘭。我出身塘河新會。我丈夫8歲嗰時去咗新西蘭揾佢父親，20歲回鄉同我結婚。嗰時我16歲。喺我24歲嗰時，同我5歲嘅女跟同家婆14歲叔仔嚟到新西蘭。
My name is Gin, or Young. I was born in China before the war, and I came from a fairly wealthy family.
喺新會，我哋有個富裕嘅家庭，家中有工人幫我哋洗衫、煮飯、做家務，照顧我哋嘅生活。我哋屋企喺中國算係好靚嘅，家中有一個私人井同好多花花草草嘅花園。
My earliest memories, I have to confess, I felt like a prisoner. I only had my grandmother for company. My father must have spent a couple of years in China after I was born, and then he left and came to New Zealand. My mother, she had a big family and all her school friends, and so I hardly saw my mother. I just had my grandmother telling me fairy tales all day, and that was my life until I was 5 in this little area with a well.
真係估唔到我丈夫同家公喺新西蘭咁辛苦揾錢嚟支持我哋嘅生活。
My father's name is Wong Wui. His English name is Norman Wong. My father actually was in New Zealand. He must have been about 8, I think. My grandfather is very old, and he had a few acres of garden. My grandfather worked until 10 o'clock maybe, washing vegetables. So my poor father, at 8, waited in the kitchen, round table, asleep. And a New Zealander, Kiwi, Mr. Taylor, he must have come in to pick up some vegetables or something and found my father asleep. And he felt sorry for him. And Mr. Taylor took in my father, and my father lived with his family and grew up as a Kiwi.
我記得有一日，日本仔喺我屋企附近落咗個炸彈，即刻滿天煙火啊！啲村人喺度大嗌大叫，我當時真係好驚啊！我同我家婆即刻帶住阿根一齊逃命去香港。我喺中國最後嘅回憶就係聽到一大關門聲。
I remember when the Japanese invaded, it was so sudden. The adults just ran round and collected what they really urgently needed, and that was about all. I think everyone was terrified, and I'm only the little one there, saying, "What is happening? What is happening?"
我哋到咗香港之後，住咗一段時間，等船去雪梨。再換船去屋崙。喺船上，我哋住好食好，餐餐都大魚大肉，住得十分開心快樂。但係一到咗夜晚呢，我哋就要封住個船窗啊！我哋驚有海盜啊，同埋敵人飛機見到我哋嘅船，就會炸我哋嘅船。
I had no experiences at all until we came on the ship to New Zealand. A lot of the Chinese travelled by storage ships, but my father, being quite Kiwi, booked our tickets on a tourist ship, but second class. But that was good, you know, I mean. My mum was the only educated woman on the ship, the Chinese.
船到達屋崙之後，我真係好開心啊！可以見翻我丈夫，我哋一家人又可以團聚啦。我丈夫同家公喺碼頭接完我哋之後，我哋就一齊搭長途巴士去基士賓。
Coming to New Zealand was a really big shock to my mother. My father must have come from Gisborne to collect us. My mother and I and Uncle Fong looked out the window and see the lambs frolicking around and the lovely paddocks and the grass. And then we finally saw this old garage with a huge truck in it and a hut, a house sort of all joined together by bits and pieces. And that's a big change from beautiful buildings in China that she came from. My mother must have been very philosophical because she rolled up her sleeve and she joined the Working Party.
I don't know a whole lot about my Bakbak's story. She died when I was 9. I'm half Chinese. My dad's English and my mum is Chinese. So I have always sort of walked that, like, in between, not quite Chinese, not quite English. My name's Brecken Dobby. I'm 23. I was born in Auckland. My Chinese zodiac is a rabbit, and I have a twin brother, so we're double rabbits. Growing up, English was always my favourite subject. Writing was my favourite thing. And then when I went to uni and I did a writing course and it had poetry, and that was sort of the first time where I was like, oh, I think that this is the form for me. My poem Diaspora Overboard is featured in Farewell Guangdong, and that was really special. Seeing my own words next to my Buck story made it even more meaningful, and I felt really connected to her in a way that I hadn't before. Buck means great-grandmother, so that was what we called her. When I was younger, I didn't really know anything about how she came from China to New Zealand. I just knew her as my Buck. But as I got older, where I realised how big of a journey she had to make to get here, and that if she hadn't have made that journey, I wouldn't be living the life that I'm living at all.
Hi, I'm Bronwyn Dobby. I'm 59 years old. I'm a school teacher in Auckland. I teach a year 1-2 class, and I'm a team leader. We would go down and visit her when I was little, until she moved up to Auckland. So I just remember going down on a long car trip down there and staying in like the little bedroom in the garage, and that's where our family stayed. Another big thing I remember as well is my pawpaw would kill all the chickens and everything for dinner, because that was the thing she did. And me, being a really very kind-hearted little girl and still don't like seeing things being killed, it was quite traumatic to be in the garage with her, where she'd be chasing the chicken around and grab it and going, and that would be it. And then the next thing you know, she'd be gutting it and throwing the things in the garden and plucking it and everything, and then it would be on the dinner table at night time. And it was kind of like, yeah, I'm not eating. I think I went off chicken for quite a long time after that, actually. I just remember her always being very loving and always being lots of hugs, and she'd always sit in her chair and she'd always watch TV, and she loved soap operas like Days of Our Lives, and she'd always be knitting. There'd always be something cooking in the kitchen. You'd always smell it in the kitchen. And she'd always want to, obviously, like a true Chinese person, want to give you food.
My mother was a very strong personality, and she also had education, Chinese at that particular time. Only the males went to school. So after she came to New Zealand, much as the other young wives may not have liked her, they still needed her to write their letters back to the families in China. We're always a talk of a town in Gisborne. My father's a talk of a town on his own to begin with, and then the wife he brought out was just as bad as him. He was playing mahjong, and we knocked on the door of a fruit shop where they play mahjong, and as soon as the door opened, my mother went like that, and she grabbed hold of his ear, and he had to get up and walk to the door with her out. And that was the news of the whole town of Chinese. That's why my father fell for her. I think I've got my father's personality. All the other Chinese were very good, you know, my age, but I went off and climbed trees on my own. Maybe that's to get away from hearing my mother call again to do chores. So I disappeared as far as I can and climbed trees and sat up there.
My mum is firstborn in New Zealand, so I think Mum had to be like the guinea pig in New Zealand. So she had to start school. She would have had to have learnt the language through just listening and watching. They'd get up early in the morning. They'd be down in the market garden helping. Then they'd have to go to school. She said, I can always remember doing my homework on the bus in the morning before I got to school because there was no time at night time. And then they'd come home from school. They'd have something quickly to eat. Then they'd be back down the market garden. So it was a hard, hard life for her. So she's done so well, and I'm so proud of her. You know, and I think that's what she wanted more for us. It was like, well, I didn't have that chance to have that education. I didn't have the chance to do what I wanted to do. And so she's tried super hard for us to become, you know, better and give us the opportunities, obviously, which she never had. And so, you know, we'll always be truly appreciative for that. There was no pressure for me to marry a Chinese person as such. It wasn't like you must marry a Chinese person, but I think it was kind of a given until probably my uncle, the youngest son, married a European lady, and then that kind of broke the pattern, and it sort of set us up for being able to marry out of the Chinese culture. In those days, there were very few Chinese people in the country anyway. It wasn't until the immigration laws opened up and people started coming over in the 90s that we ended up with a lot more Chinese people. I very much identify with being a Kiwi, being a New Zealander, but a Chinese New Zealander. And so that's where, you know, you say to people, oh, well, you know, what are you? And I go, oh, I'm a Chinese Kiwi. And people go, oh, you know, what does that mean? But it's obviously I'm Chinese. I'm born in New Zealand, so I associate with both. I believe that, you know, a country should be that way, and we should all have that one goal, that we're all Kiwis, but we all keep our cultures as well. So that's how I associate it. It's like I'm a Kiwi. I love being in New Zealand. I love New Zealand, but I'm Chinese, and I have all my cultural beliefs, and they run alongside being a Kiwi.
If my Buck was still alive, I would love to tell her how grateful I am for everything that she did for our family so that I can live the life that I live, especially because I think I was so young when she passed away that I didn't understand that at the time. So I'd love to thank her for that big sacrifice and the bravery that she had to come somewhere so far away from home to give her family the best start in life.
Brecon is a poet. She's got a way with words, and she's written quite a few poems, and they've been published, but that one about her great-grandmother, or my grandmother, it brought tears to my eyes, because it did. It evoked memories that were really, really true, that I'd kind of forgotten about. It's like, and it was those things about the smell, the touch, that feeling, and it's not just visual. It wasn't just about, I remember her sitting there. It was actually how it made Brecon feel.
Your township worry, a shawao de yopiao, a small mail ticket. Like Buck and Buck go, travelling to what they hope will be home. Across the broken continents of Shuangchu. That narrow ticket ferried away. You are, when you grow up, here. A new life, but an ancient worry. Hand in hand, constantly repeating, Shuangchu, Shuangchu. As it becomes a gravestone deteriorating, a culture of gradual loss, the landlocked poetry calling across the Chichen de Haisha, that shallow sea gorge. And the mainland, Shuangchu, Shuangchu, is nowhere. But you are here, rocking violently as the boat jets the strait. No times for goodbyes while I plant my feet on solid earth every single day. Knowing stability, feeling safe. So I keep the words in my brain, swish them around my mouth, let them feel strange. I'll try to make them familiar.
I think if I could talk to my pawpaw now, I would love to be able to talk to her and say, I hope that you can see what you've set up for our whole family. And you see I'm getting really emotional, but because she did, she set it all up for us. And I think she'd be super proud of us. And I just think she's amazing. I'd be able to tell her, you're amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
There's war in the air, our cupboards are bare. The time has come, the time that I fear. Daughter, sweet daughter, you must go alone to a foreign country, far from your home, and be an immigrant woman, young, brave and free. Refugee woman, crossing land and sea.
非常感謝 New Zealand On Air 嘅幫助。